My neighbor is not human. I never wanted to move here. But after losing my job and breaking up with my girlfriend, I had no choice. The house was cheap, too cheap. My new neighbors were quiet, almost unnervingly so. It felt like a place where people disappeared and no one asked questions. The first night while unpacking, I felt eyes on me. I turned and saw Mr. Calloway. He stood in his upstairs window, perfectly still, silhouetted against the dim light. His head was tilted too far to one side, like a puppet with loose strings. I waved. He didn't wave back. He just stood there, watching. I tried to ignore the growing knot in my stomach. Maybe he was just a weird old man. Maybe he was lonely. Maybe I was overreacting. But then he blinked, and in that split second something changed. His face. For just a fraction of a second, his eyes became completely black. His jaw seemed to hang a little lower. Then, just as fast as it happened, it was normal again. I blinked, rubbed my eyes. Had I imagined it? I told myself I was just tired. That was my first mistake. The nightmares began. That night I woke up gasping for air. I had a dream. Except it didn't feel like a dream. It felt real. In it, I was lying in bed, unable to move. The door creaked open and something crawled in. It wasn't walking. It was slithering. Long, spindly fingers wrapped around my throat. A voice whispered in my ear, "Let me in." I woke up drenched in sweat, gasping. My throat ached, like something had actually been squeezing it. That's when I heard the sound, a wet dragging noise, coming from outside. I swallowed hard and forced myself to look out the window. Mr. Calloway stood in his yard, barefoot, wearing the same clothes. But they didn't fit right, like his body had changed shape underneath them. His head snapped toward me, and in that instant, I heard his voice. Inside my head, "I know you're awake." The scratching at my door. The next night I locked everything. Windows, doors. Hell, I even barricaded the front entrance with furniture. At exactly 3:13 a.m., the scratching started. Soft at first, almost playful. Then it grew desperate. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Then, knocking. Slow, deliberate. Knock, knock, knock. Then the voice. "Let me in." I squeezed my eyes shut, gripping the knife in my hands. Don't answer. Don't look. Don't even breathe. The knocking stopped. Then something worse happened. The sound of the lock turning. My stomach dropped. I had locked it. I knew I had locked it. But the door handle twisted. The door creaked open. I held my breath. Nothing came in. Just darkness. I sat frozen for what felt like an eternity. Finally, when the sun began to rise, I worked up the courage to check the door. There were no scratches, no footprints, but the doorknob was warm, like something or someone had been holding it. The truth about Mr. Calloway. I had to know who or what I was dealing with. I dug through the town archives, looking up old records. What I found made my blood run cold. Mr. Calloway had died 27 years ago. His body was never found. Only his skin was discovered, carefully peeled and folded in his bed. His neighbors reported seeing him long after his death. One by one, those neighbors disappeared. Now I was the new neighbor, and I had seen him. Which meant he had seen me. The final night. That night I packed a bag. I didn't care about my stuff. I just needed to leave. At 3:13 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text message. Unknown number. You can't leave. I dropped the phone. My ears rang. Then, the TV turned on by itself. The screen flickered, static. Then a video, security footage, of my front porch. I saw myself standing at the door, knife in hand. But something was wrong. My reflection in the glass wasn't me. It was Mr. Calloway. He grinned, and in my own voice I heard, "Let me in." The screen glitched. Then, a live feed of my bedroom, from inside the room, and standing behind me just inches away was Mr. Calloway, smiling. The last thing I remember, I don't know what happened next. I woke up inside my house. The sun was shining. Everything was normal, except for one thing. The house next door? It was abandoned, not empty, not for sale, just gone, like it had never existed, like I had imagined it. But I know that's not true, because every night at 3:13 a.m. I still hear the knocking, and sometimes I hear my own voice whispering back, "Let me in." The man in the reflection. Living alone wasn't supposed to be scary. I had a cozy little apartment, a boring job, and a predictable routine. Nothing strange ever happened until the night I noticed my reflection didn't match my movements. It was a tiny thing at first. I turned my head and my reflection lagged behind, just for a fraction of a second. I shook it off. Maybe I was just tired. But as I turned to leave the bathroom, I caught something else. My reflection's lips curled into a smirk, but I wasn't smiling. The man in the mirror. Over the next few days, it got worse. I'd test it, raise a hand, tilt my head, blink a few times. Most of the time, everything was fine. But then, sometimes at random, my reflection would be off. A delayed blink, a wrong movement, a twitching smile that wasn't mine. Then one night, I tried something different. I lifted my right hand. My reflection lifted its left. I stumbled back, my heart slamming in my chest. Then it whispered. I didn't hear it. I felt it, like words slithering directly into my mind. "Let me in." I bolted out of the bathroom, slammed the door, and didn't go back inside until morning. The reflection that wasn't me. I started avoiding mirrors. I covered the bathroom mirror with a towel, avoided looking at windows, even turned my phone screen away when it went dark. But I could feel it, watching, waiting. The tapping started next. Late at night, I'd hear it from the bathroom. Soft, slow, fingernails on glass. I didn't check. I refused to check. Until one night, the tapping moved closer. I lay in bed, frozen, listening as the sound shifted. The bathroom was across the hall, but now the tapping was coming from my closet. I held my breath. Then, tap, right by my bedside. I turned on the light in a panic, gasping, but no one was there. Then I saw it, a handprint, on the screen of my phone, like something had been watching me from inside the glass. The final night. I couldn't take it anymore. I ripped the mirror off the wall and dragged it outside to the dumpster. That night, for the first time in weeks, I felt safe, until I woke up and saw the mirror was back, perfectly mounted on the wall, and the reflection? It wasn't me. The thing in the mirror stood too tall. Its limbs were too thin, its skin stretched too tight. It smiled, mocking me. Then as I watched in horror, it stepped forward, not just leaning. Stepping out, a hand emerged from the glass, then another. I backed away, slamming against the wall. The figure crawled out, unfolding itself, impossibly long. I screamed, and everything went black. The truth. I woke up the next morning gasping for air. The mirror was gone. The apartment looked normal. Had it been a dream? A hallucination? I sighed, shaking my head. Maybe I had finally lost it. Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Look behind you." My blood ran cold. I turned my phone screen into selfie mode. And my reflection. It wasn't me. It was him. Grinning. Then the screen glitched, and I heard the whisper. "Now it's your turn."